Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
One thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lied.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
Mantra, slave songs, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I am, my ancestors speak. They tell me the tide isn't print on us like we're weak. I haven't been getting sleep. Longing to sing until I surpass peak. Until they think we are equal, please. All I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums until their bones would bleed. Begging the generations remember our story.
Yo. Good morning. Peace, blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. Good to be here with the good people. I hope you staying warm. I hope the roads cleared up for you. I don't know what your conditions look like out there. We're doing all right over here. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Actually didn't anticipate it on being extremely terrible. But we are here. You see the title. Shout outs to my poets, writers, content creators. I give my flowers where flowers are due. This is a foreign one, but it's not that foreign to me, man. I just thought it would be something interesting to bring up. I got Sydney and I got Coach in the building. I got a clip. And we're going to chalk it up. Do me a solid. Let the people know that we are on. And let's get to it. Let's see where we at. Yo. All right, there we go.
What up?
How's everybody feeling? What's the vibe? What's the energy this morning?
Doing pretty good. I've been up since like 3, but I woke up voluntarily, so I don't feel tired at least. But I got a lot done this morning, and it's nice and sunny, so luckily I'm not having to deal with all the snow that everyone on the East Coast and Midwest are getting, so I'm grateful for that.
Right on. Look, I'm going to bring this up on the big screen. We're going to jump straight into it. Yeah. Hold on. Matter of fact, let me make sure this is maxed out. All right.
Noodle exposed, hiding a black woman's body, harvesting the organs. It's a damn shame. Put it up full mask. California woman goes missing. Is found in a morgue months later with organs taken out of her body. Ms. Tonya Walker went missing in November of 2023, could not be found anywhere by the family. This prompted a thorough search throughout their home of Sacramento for months. The investigation officially began November 10th, when Tonya's family reported her missing to the police. It's not like Tonya Walker to do this, so they got police involved. Her sisters. The Walker's appearance searched for months. Then a break came. A break in the case did not come until May 2024, several months later, when the DOJ noticed that she had been marked as deceased by the DMV. So a sheriff's deputy told the family that they had finally found Walker's body on a shelf in a morgue located on the outskirts of Sacramento. When family arrived, they were shown Miss Walker's body. Walker was missing her eyes and her epidermal, her skin, was identified through the renderings of a tattoo on her arm. Walker's family discovered that she actually died in November 2nd of cardiac arrest. California-based medical organizations, a nonprofit, is now facing a civil lawsuit filed by Walker's family. Hospital exposed, hiding a black woman's body, harvest.
Yo. That shit is crazy, man. That is crazy. This is the first time I actually seen a story reported on this before. And I've done stories on things like this. Recently, it was a guy who was going through grave sites, and he was, matter of fact, let me go ahead and put that out here too. Disclaimer: if you have a loved one that you haven't visited in a long time, you probably might want to check on them, check to see if the maintenance has been kept up on their plots and all that stuff, because there's people out here that they raid the cemeteries, they raid the plots, they repurpose the caskets and resell them. They take jewelry, they take body parts, they take skulls, they take pieces of them, and they sell them on the market. And if you think I'm lying, I got you. I got some information for you to check out, which brings me back to this one right here. This woman goes missing. Nobody hears from her. When they finally get back any type of news, they find out not only has she been gone for some time, but she has organs missing. What's your initial thoughts on this video?
I think at the very, very least, this is just an example of extremely poor, like, clerical management of some sort, where stuff like, I mean, I don't know exactly how hospitals work, but I do know that when somebody shows up in the hospital, they're required to notify a next of kin, an emergency contact of some sort. There's the potential that maybe she wasn't registered at that hospital and didn't have ID on her, but in that case, they still have to involve the police to properly figure out anyone who knows her, next of kin who's related. And so they either did not do their due diligence, cannot talk this morning, and did not go through the proper methods to adequately find anyone related to her, figure out her identity. But the fact that the DMV was notified lets me know that they were at least able to identify who this woman was. So something along the lines got missed, where they neglected to inform the family that she had been found, that she had passed away. And there's a possibility she could have been listed as an organ donor. I forgot exactly what the means are, but I do know that you can do this through the DMV. When you apply for your driver's license, there is actually, or at least in California, there is a question that notates whether or not you'd like to be an organ donor in case you get in a car accident and pass away. So she could have had that pre-established, which is why they donated those organs. Because I do know with organ donation, they have to do so quickly because the organs to be used in a living human need to be taken right away, or they will not be viable. Because especially soft tissues like the eyes, the skin, that falls apart fairly quickly after death because of its moisture content. And it's possible like her other organs maybe weren't viable. However, they still were highly negligent in the fact that they did not contact her family either before her death or after, or even like with the police investigation, they didn't come forward until like way later. So yeah, definitely negligence on the part of the hospital. And I'm glad that they're filing a lawsuit because this is definitely falling under the hospital's error and not law enforcement.
Coach, what's your take?
I mean, it's been going on. Something real prevalent in Europe, gets more coverage over there versus here in America. But yeah, it's unfortunate, man. And like Sid said, as far as for, that's why a lot of people tell you don't put that kind of stuff on your driver's license. It makes it easily identifiable, especially if you go and get into an accident or in the hospital or whatever the case may be. But definitely unfortunate. It's something that needs more coverage.
Something that I pulled up that I wanted to read. Organ harvesting controversies in the United States. Recent investigations, including the 2025 Health and Human Services report, have raised concerns about the speed and greed of organ procurement in the U.S., particularly regarding the pressure to increase donor numbers. Reports indicate instances where organ procurement organizations pressured hospital staff to initiate the removal of organs while patients still exhibited signs of life or had not been properly declared deceased. A 2025 investigation revealed a 2021 incident where a Kentucky patient with a drug overdose showed signs of waking up, moving, moaning while being transported for organ retrieval. And another case where a patient survived after a doctor refused to proceed. The push for increased transplant numbers have led to investigations into whether some OPOs are prioritizing the number of transplants over ethical standards. This is wild. So you telling me that there are people that are literally on their deathbed fighting for their life. They're probably going to survive. And you're saying we're going to pretend like we don't see this person showing signs of life. And we're just going to continue with the procedure anyway, because there's a market for it or there's a demand for this. And we need to get these numbers up. So we're just going to keep on with the process. That's scary. And you said this been going on in Europe for a while too. See, I didn't know how long this was a thing. I'm just now really getting hip to it. I mean, all of it.
It's a worldwide problem, frankly. Like this exists in a lot of countries. It's just in westernized countries, we have a little bit more pushback because we're a bit more modernized and medically, at least.
Yeah, and the other thing too is it's been talked about. Just it's not something that people tend to care about unless somebody that they know is affected by it. Just like everything else that goes on. But yeah, I mean, that's why I think in the late '90s, early 2000s, the date rape drugs were becoming prominent to talk about. Excuse me, roofies or whatever the case may be. You go to a nightclub and you hear about people being drugged and waking up in a tub full of ice, especially over in Europe. And then we used to hear about that a lot, traveling a lot overseas. And those are other issues and reasons why you would check in the embassies and, consulates just to let them know that you're in those countries. And then you get a safety briefing as far as what's going on in those countries. So again, it just comes with being responsible when traveling and doing your due diligence. And, you start to think about, like, a lot of people would, not to poke at Groupons, but we're going to the DR, Dominican Republic, and a lot of people would drinking or whatever, consuming some type of recreational, beverages or drugs, and not making it home. Safe haven for those places. A lot of times, you look at the places people go travel to resorts and they tell you, not to go outside of certain areas because you're not necessarily sure with the crime and all those things that happens in those areas. And it happens a lot. And then what you don't get is it becomes bad for marketing, bad for publicity, promotion wise. So you won't hear about it because you have to think about, the impact it has to the businesses, just like case in point, an example, not the same thing, but it's an example. If you look at the Cassie and Diddy situation, in a hotel and the video and that stuff was easily be covered up. It's just like that anywhere else. I mean, they got cameras everywhere, surveillance everywhere. So there's no reason why these things shouldn't be caught and publicized. But, it's a business and they have rules and regulations as far as for taking care of their business, just like anybody else does.
I have a few stories that would apply to this. One of them happened very recently. I remember reading about this. It happened in August of this past year. A woman woke up from a coma right as they were cutting her open to take her organs from her. They did not properly judge that she was still alive. She was a homeless woman. And so her family was basically just told, oh yeah, her condition's irreversible. She's not going to regain consciousness. And so they were like, all right, sure. Go ahead with the procedure. And as they were getting ready to basically cut her open and remove her organs, she woke up. And so she narrowly avoided being killed through the process of having your organs donated, which she would have been conscious for some of that if she had woken up during that procedure, which for anyone that does not know, it is deeply traumatizing, obviously. But there's lots of stories with that that I won't get into, but it does a tremendous amount of psychological damage if you experience surgery while being awake. This happens even besides organ procurement. But anyways, there was another story recently as well. I believe it was November, December of this past year, where a hospital was, this is something they do a lot as well. Even if you aren't an organ donor, if the hospital has deemed you a hopeless case, they will push the family to remove life support, even if the family wants to proceed with life support. And there was a father that ended up going to prison for a short amount of time. They might have let him off because of the circumstances, but I'm pretty sure he ended up getting put in jail for this. He threatened nurses at gunpoint because they basically were like, no, we're going to take your son off life support. And the father was like, no, there's still life in him. I know my son, he's been holding my hand. I know he's still alive. But the doctors were basically like, no, we're going to get a court order. We're going to arrest you. If you don't let us do this, then Like there's going to be problems for you. And so I think the standoff was a couple hours at least. And he ended up being right. When the police came to take him away, as soon as he let go of his son's hand, his son moved. And so the doctors were like, wow, he is still alive. We should not do this. And so he did end up saving his son's life, and his son fully woke up. He didn't completely recover because it was a traumatic brain injury, but it's just another example of how hospitals will often go forward with death procedures, even if the family members don't want to, because they have quotas. They have, as they've said, or as you said with the quote, if somebody's an organ donor, there's that extra push because they're like, we need to get this stuff while it's fresh. And so we don't really care if, you know, they're not fully there yet. Like, we just want to get what we can get. And I've had a personal experience with this. In 2008, my dad had a brain hemorrhage that impacted 75% of his brain. He had basically been bleeding through the night, and his entire frontal lobe and left side of his head was filled with blood. And I distinctly remember, I was only 12-ish at the time. The doctor went up to my mom and he was like, I would consider, like, don't proceed with life-saving procedures because your husband wouldn't want to live like this. And my mom was like, what do you mean? Don't tell me what my family wants, what my husband wants. You don't know him. And the doctor basically kept trying to push her, saying like, it's not worth it. You're just going to suffer. You're going to force him to suffer. And my dad, like, albeit he didn't make a full recovery, he lost a lot of his abilities, but he was able to talk again. He was able to walk again. He was able to drive again. And he lived another, 11 years after that stroke. But it's the kind of thing that people deal with a lot, where the doctors are putting unnecessary pressure on people just because they want to get the beds empty. They want to get the organs harvested. They want to, because as you said, Coach, they're business. And that's a lot of places, not all of them, but a lot of places, they care more about their numbers than they do about the people.
Around 600,000 people go missing in the U.S. annually, but the most cases resolve quickly, though thousands remain open, while globally millions vanish each year due to various reasons like running away, abduction, or getting lost. I wanted to read that piece because of the piece that was left in the comments about the backpackers hiking and all that. For my own clarification, because I watched the movie, but I don't know if it's the same thing. What's a hostel? What's a hostel, bro? Is it like a hotel, motel? Is it like?
Let me. All right. So, imagine open bay. Whether you're thinking, I was gonna say boot camp, but or prison, because it's an open bay area, right? Some of them, not all of them are the same. Some of them are different. So what they have is they have slots, or like a shelter. Think of a shelter. You go stay in one of those. You pay like $10 or €5, or depending on what country you're in, yen, yang, whatever. And then it's an open bay restroom, toilette, and basically you pay for just a spot to sleep in, and it's completely dark because obviously you're sleeping in it. It's only for it's not for like partying or anything. Just strictly you need a bed to sleep in, and you don't know who's in there. Anybody can be walking around in there, and then in the middle of the night, somebody grab your ass, duct tape you, zip tie you, and get you up out of there. Or you go to the restroom, toilette in the middle of the night or in the morning, because typically what happens is people are frequently in and out throughout the night, throughout the day. You don't know who's in there, and that's what happens, man. Some of them are equivalent to, like, let's say a Motel 2, not a 6, but like a Motel 2. They're that bad off. You know what I mean? Tellies, or whatever you want to call them. Not a hotel, but a motel. But yeah, a real bad shelter environment. Think of the worst, just like the movie, and then just think about what can happen inside of there. Now, I'm not saying that these are all bad places or anything like that, because I slept in many of them. But it's just the potential, the risk that comes with it. You know, not weighing that risk and that factor, because you don't stay in a, let's say, a Holiday Inn or something along those lines that's a step above 2-star, but not necessarily as bad. But that would cost more money depending on what country you're in. So the hostel is, you know, what the backpackers typically go stay in, or a bunch of people that's going to go party, you know, and in that way it's cheap, inexpensive, get up, take a shower, and just keep it moving. But yeah, it's just like the movie, but you know, not as much theatrics, but the potential and the risk for adverse activities is the issue.
The look of them is kind of like what you'd expect from a really cheap summer camp for kids, where it's just like bunk beds next to bunk beds next to bunk beds, and you're all in the same shared space, one bathroom for everyone, but then you're not paying $200 with a bunch of kids. It's $10 and whoever.
Right. Yeah.
Yo, when I watched that movie, a part of me was like, all right, all of this can't be fictional. You know, there's truth to a lot of this stuff. So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, bro, is there really people out here that's sitting behind glass walls, see-through mirrors, they bidding on people, and they putting price tags on what torture devices they can use on a person and all? I'm like, oh, this is wild, man. What are we doing? What are we doing here in this country? And then you just up and you want to travel and go all these different places with one or two people. Are people really doing their research? Like, if I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to Europe, like, shout out to Rob. Rob be everywhere. And I got to ask him, how much do you know when you be going to these places, bro? And how many people are you going with? Like, I'm not traveling by myself ever. And I'm not going with somebody I don't trust. We talked about that before too. Having people around you that you don't really have the instincts of, oh, well, if there are some things going on, I can trust that they're gonna be on their P's and Q's like me. Nah. What do you think one of the things we should be looking out for with this pushing donor thing, illegal donors, harvesting, disappearing, and I don't know, like it's a whole lot to unpack, man, because I know if I don't hear from somebody for a while, I'm definitely going to be wondering if they alive or not. So one thing that you would say to look out for if you're going to be a donor. Mind you, I did volunteer. I changed it though when I updated my driver's license though. I don't want nothing to do with it. But I did volunteer the first time. But yeah, because I don't know.
What made you course correct? What made you change?
The movies. The movies.
Which movie, man?
It was actually Hostel.
Oh, okay.
That was the one that did it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, To each his own, man. I couldn't give anybody any advice on that because people do it for different reasons. Some people feel like it's a good thing to do, a moral thing to do. Some people feel like it makes them a good humanitarian. Some people feel like it's a way to pay it forward. That's completely up to you. I don't have any advice on that whatsoever. You know, just make sure you do your research. That's all I'll say. And then, like everything else, is you can do as much research as you want, and that doesn't mean it's going to actually pan out the way you want it to. So some people don't do it because they feel like if somebody in their family, or if they have kids or a spouse or significant other, that, you know, those will be the people that they wanted to donate something to, if the option was available or if it came up. So I know a lot of people don't do it because of that. And then, you know, like you guys said, is they say nobody knows how accurate it is, but if you get into an accident, they may lean a little bit to not necessarily saving you or resuscitating you to, and just specifically having that list of people who may need one of those organs. So just do your due diligence, do your research, especially where you live, because everybody, that's different as well. If you're in a small town, you're in a big town, big city, you know, places, a lot of accidents, you know, things of that nature that happen. So you have to do your due diligence and just realize, like I know somebody, they were talking about somebody was waiting on a heart for about 1.5 years. And a week before Christmas, they actually got notified that they had one. So again, it just depends, because you could be that person whose loved one is waiting on an organ. So then now somebody will say, hey, well, isn't that hypocritical? You didn't want to donate anything, and then now you need somebody that needs one. You know, you're O positive, O negative, and the blood types don't match. So it's just the different things you have to take in consideration. You know what I mean? Or you should. You don't have to do anything, but to help you come out with a better informed decision, you know, you should probably take in those, do a list of pros and cons, and then, you know, make that conscious decision.
I think it also matters too how you want your body to be processed after you pass, because I think people who are getting buried are probably less likely to want to donate their organs, or maybe they're okay with organs, but they wouldn't want like their external organs to be harvested, because if you're trying to do an open casket, that's going to be pretty chilling for somebody to have to look at. Whereas, for example, I have myself listed because I like the idea of continuing to help people after my death, because like after I die, I mean, it's organic matter. It's going to go back to the environment, and I want myself to be cremated because one, I don't need a whole frivolous funeral and stuff like that. And I also don't like the idea of being buried in a box in the ground. Anyway, if I'm going to be cremated, like, yeah, use what you can. If there's a purpose and it can help somebody else, then sure, I'm not going to need it anymore. But I know, like, for religious reasons, for personal reasons, some people just are not comfortable with that. They're like, oh, that's creepy, that's weird, that's whatever. Maybe if you're watching horror movies, you might also be afraid of the whole idea of it. But I think the only thing, obviously, like, sadly, illegal harvesting would be a greater risk than the hospital just ignoring procedures and whatever. And I mean, truthfully, the risk isn't all that high when you compare it to other forms of risk out there. So it's definitely not something I would say people should be afraid of. But in the hospital sense, I think one of the best things you can do for you is get yourself a reliable person to be your next of kin to contact. Because I think sometimes if it takes a long time to get in contact with somebody who is able to make those end of life decisions for you, it could potentially lead to them making the decision for you, just because of the time limits to organ harvesting. So try and find somebody that, one, knows your plan, knows what you want, will vouch for you, and is going to be a reliable person to call. So don't put somebody that you know travels all the time and could be out of the country, or it can't even travel because they have a medical condition or whatnot. Try to set yourself up with a reliable next of kin who would be able to make those decisions adequately for you and would be able to fight for you if you were in the condition where you potentially could be saved. But beyond that, I don't know if there's really much you can do, because sadly, a lot of the people that are doing illegal harvesting or harvesting in unethical ways are third party. They're not hospitals. Like, while they might be putting added pressure because of stakeholders, the people that are truly doing the, like, I'm going to kidnap you from a hotel and put you in a bathtub of ice, like, those people are either individuals or a organizational type group that is doing this for profit, specifically for that purpose. So besides keeping your wits about you and making sure you're aware of the places that you're going to, there's not a ton that you can do to prevent that type of stuff from happening. But yeah, in the hospital sense, just have a reliable next of kin.
My condolences to the family. You know, that's terrible. That'd be really, really messed up to get some news like that. You know what I'm saying? It's unfortunate that it's a thing that happens way more often than even I thought, but I guess that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about that in the first place, because there's so much going on in the world. You know, it's not just about what Cardi B is doing, you know. We gotta be safe. I know we want to live and we want to be comfortable and we want to explore, and nobody should have to just like spend their life looking over their shoulders, but you still have to be conscious of your surroundings too. And that educational piece.
Yeah, definitely, man. You definitely got to be aware of your surroundings. And that's one of the things people aren't necessarily doing. I mean, it's something as simple as when you're walking out of a place and not looking at your phone, you know, kind of just walk directly to your car, get in, get out, do what you got to do. When you're walking into a building, you know, be aware of your surroundings. Situational awareness is very important. Operational security is very important. Risk management is very important. And I think it's something that we do every day. We just don't practice it within our own lives. We do it at work, at school, you know, where it's required, working around heavy machinery, different things like that. But, you know, not when we're driving, when you should be, not when you're walking, when you should be, not when you're trying to get to your destination. You know, I think it's just the entitlement piece, man, is everybody, you know, just feels like nothing's going to happen, so they don't have to worry about those type of things. And it goes back to, you know, what I always say is, instead of being reactive, be proactive. You know, it's too late when you're in a situation, but the whole time, if you know, you're kind of on the defense, and you have to be that way. The whole world has been that way since 9/11. You know, everybody has been judging people, judging situations, you know, whether it's out loud or in their minds. And so that's just something else that you have to be cognizant of, is judging your environment and your surroundings. You know, you look at people that go to these hookah lounges, everybody's smoking after each other, don't know who they're with, you know what I mean, don't know what they're smoking. You go to the bar, you go buy a bunch of rounds, or somebody buys you a round and you don't know who they are, and you're taking a round of drinks. You know, they could have good intentions or not. And then just that easy, you can become a victim of something. So,
or you leave your drink on the table and go to the bathroom and then keep drinking it.
Absolutely. You know, put a napkin on it and think that's cool. And they just slide the napkin over, drop something you drink, and it dissolves without anybody noticing. So just simple things that you do in your everyday life and the activities that you tend to take for comfort. Even the gym, and I hate to leave the gym out, because I think that's an important place, especially when most of the people in there are probably halfway clothed, and they look like they're in good health, in good shape, and could have some good organs. You laugh, but you know what I'm saying? Things like that happen. They found that young man folded in the wrestling mat, a few years back. You know what I mean? And when they unraveled the mat, he was missing some body parts. So, simple things like that we may laugh and joke about, but somebody may be looking at you like, damn, you look like he got some good lungs. You know what I mean? So just keeping that type of stuff in consideration. And it's unfortunate that you have to think like that. But, just like being a driver, you want to be a good offensive driver and a defensive driver as well. So just keeping those things in duality.
Yeah.
I was also laughing earlier because that trip that we were talking about earlier, when you have to be aware and be careful about who you're traveling with, that friend that she wanted me to go to Greece with her. She'd never been to Greece before. I have never been out of the country except to go to Canada and a boat trip in Mexico, but that was through like a camp. She wanted us to stay in a hostel. I asked her, I was like, well, where would we be staying? Keep in mind, I was in my early 20s and she was only 18 or 19. And when I say she's very naive, she's very, very naive and overly trusting of people to a fault. And she was like, yeah, we'll go to these locations. We'll stay in a hostel. And as soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, no, good. I am definitely not interested in going. Thank you for the invite, though, because, yeah, you really want to be with people that have the same level of situational awareness as you. Like, people who underestimate the power of observation has never jammed their toe against the wall. That is the most minor consequence of no situational awareness, and how easy it is for you to hurt yourself just by not paying attention. And there are way worse things that can happen by lack of situational awareness. I cannot tell you how many people have walked off cliffs because they're on their phones. Yosemite recently, I think it was either 2020 or 2023, somewhere around there, they put out a PSA because enough people had been wearing those AI goggle things that they were literally like walking off waterfalls, walking off the cliffs, walking over the edges of mountains, because they're watching the thing on their face and not paying attention to where they're going. And it's sadly, with phones, it's become very, very common for people to put themselves into harm just because they're not paying attention. Walk into traffic, as I said, walk off a cliff, walk into the water. Like, there's crazy things that people will do just because they're not looking. And
Pokemons.
yes, right. Yeah, that has also happened. It's crazy to me that people can exhibit that much disregard for the situations that they're in. But I can also see how easy it is to let your guard down in places that you would assume to be safe. Just like you said, in clubs, in restaurants, in bars and gyms, it can be easy to feel familiar with that location, so you feel safe. But that doesn't mean you're safe, because people, criminals, will patrol areas and look at patterns that people are exhibiting. And if you regularly are not paying attention and showing that you're not being alert with your surroundings, those are the types of people that get targeted. So you have to keep your wits about you no matter where you are, whether it's a dangerous place or a comfortable place, because you never know. And sadly, a lot of the violent crimes are done by people that we know. And so that's something you have to keep into consideration, is even if you think you know the person, trust the person, you still have to like listen to your intuition, pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to their behavior. And it's sad because we theoretically in a modern society hope to live in a world where we can just be safe just by existing, but we don't. And it literally could be anybody. So you have to protect yourself by paying attention for yourself, because nobody, unless you're a child and you like nobody's going to be looking out for you. And I mean, some children aren't even that lucky.
I still don't know how the hell that student got caught up in that gym. That one never sat well with me. And I'm not even sure if they even found the suspect in that. But that
Goes
was
back to
messed.
what we're talking about, man. You know what I'm saying? What happened to him? Nobody heard anything about it. The school never talked about it again. I mean, if they did, it went away pretty fast. But it just goes back to what we're talking about. You know, if somebody get paid off, you know what I mean? Because nobody's running around talking about fighting for justice and looking for those type of things. So that's the other thing, man. When these things happen, what happens to the family? You know, what happens to the people that were advocating for justice and all this type of stuff? If it's such a crime and the things are so bad, how does it die out? How does it become a fad or a phase that you talk about? Just how does it come and go so quickly?
Just like social media topics, celebrity gossip. Because right now, everybody talking about that Corey Holcomb stuff. But give it another week or two.
Which one? The one with him and old boy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Him, Anton, him mushing that female comedian. Yeah, that's for like the last 2 weeks or so. People, that's all people been talking about. But eventually they're gonna move on to something else. And that's the sad part about this right here. Like the stuff with Anton and them, I don't care if you move on past that, but cases like this, that shouldn't be forgotten about. And it's that aftermath. It's the lives that are affected. Then what does life look like for these people afterwards? What the community just look like afterwards? It's like that small town secret that everybody knows about, except for the person who's traveling from out of Kansas going into wherever, and they speak the fourth wall, and everybody's like, "Shh, we don't talk about that here," you know. But any last thoughts before we close out? I want to say thank you to the people who pulled up. Like really, honestly, like I said at the beginning of the stream, check on your loved ones. You know, dead or alive, because the type of men and women that are out here, and it's not all of us, but there's a group and there's a small little tribe of folks out here, man, that they run in these markets on the dark web and everywhere. And this is their lifestyle. This is how they make a living. You know what I'm saying? And you might not think it's gonna be your day, but it very well could be. The guy the guy that I just did a reaction to, he collected over 100 skeletal remains. Some of them still had tissue to their torsos that hadn't even decomposed all the way yet. Like that shit is crazy, man. You don't think this stuff real until you see it, and it's like, all right, let me wake up a little bit. Anyway, man, we about to get up out of here. Be back later on tonight. You guys stay warm. Drive safe if you gotta be on the road. And do me a solid before you go, if you don't mind.
What's the goddamn button back?
Peace.
Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I hide, my ancestors speak. They tell me the tide isn't front on us like we're weak. I haven't been getting sleep. Longing to sing until I surpass peak. Until they think we are equal, please. All I want is peace. My